Thank you very much. Do I really have to follow that? That's not an easy gig. That was really inspirational, genuinely inspirational, and I hope you all found it so too. And I think someone said they have to introduce themselves earlier so you get a picture of who they are. But as you said, I've been at this for over a decade. I was looking at retrofit and skills in retrofit when no one else was in any way interested, because I've been doing it for about 15 years. I must update that, about 15 years. And we've had two major busts in that period where effectively the bottom fell out of retrofit, such as it ever was, had a top, and there was a lot of negativity. And I remember very clearly 6 years ago sitting in an office I'd just hired on my own when I set up the Retrofit Academy, I think, what the hell am I doing? I must be mad. But it was very much that sense of we need to do something, and a bit of tenacity and ambition, I suppose. And 6 years later, I'm very, very proud of our organisation and what we've achieved. I could look at it in terms of financial growth or impact. We tend to look at it more in terms of impact. That I can stand here today and tell you that rather than talking about the need to train thousands of retrofit coordinators, we trained 2,000 retrofit coordinators, including 100 in Scotland. And that all started in an office 6 years ago. So it is incredible what mountains you can climb. And I'm going to I've come up to Scotland to tell you a bit about our organisation and how we'd really like to work with the sector up here if we're invited to do so. And to collaborate, very, very important word in low carbon and sustainability. I'll be very honest with you, we could very easily sit in our much bigger office now with our much bigger team and make an absolute fortune out of what we do. We choose not to, because our mission, as it's stated there, is to support the development of 200,000 competent retrofitters by the end of this decade. And I agree with you about the short-term focus being the more important one. There is a need for over 400,000 new retrofitters in the UK. So we're not saying we're going to deliver all 200,000, all 400,000, just half of them. At the minute, we're training about 2,500 ourselves. So we've made we're 100th of the way there. Great. We're never going to be able to fill that gap. And that's the reason we're a community interest company. We're not for profit. And our focus is in enabling the UK educational sector to start delivering the courses and qualifications that lead to competent retrofitters. Why do we tackle it? You've heard most of this several times today, so I won't dwell on it. But 27 million homes in the UK. There is hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds, now billions of pounds, being pledged by government, and I'd love to see this investment come through that I keep hearing about from the private sector. But we've only got 28 years to do it. We've got, 7.5 years left till the end of this decade. And the supply chain, people at the back of the room, fantastic people, my clients, is still embryonic. So we don't have the scale and we don't have the competency yet in that. Now, recently, we ran an event. We run regular retrofit summits for our members. And this was looking back to 2013, when there was a lot of Westminster money kicking around in energy efficiency. And it was looking back at why things went spectacularly wrong in certain occasions. And sometimes that went wrong at scale. And we invited a councillor who had a terrible experience in an area of the Preston area, a place called Fishwick. You can find there's a case study on the internet if you Google it. It was a £5 million energy efficiency project. It was meant to improve people's lives. It's now cost in the region of £15 million to remediate. It's going to cost another £20 million just to get back to square one. Okay? Now, I'm not standing here and saying that's what your supply chain is going to deliver, because it won't. The world's moved on a lot better since then, a lot more since then, and standards are more robust, and there's some really, really good companies out there. But there's a risk to you that it can happen, and particularly if you don't have competent people filling the right roles on the right projects. So we've got to get on with this. We've got to deliver that supply chain, and the skills gaps are enormous. What this graph shows you, the blue section of this diagram is the existing repairs and maintenance sector. Anyone know how many people work in the repairs and maintenance sector in the UK? Shout out a guess. Is it 10? 20 million? It's 250,000. So we want to set ourselves a challenge by the end of this decade of growing that by more than 250%. Because that 250,000 people we've got now are very stretched, and we're going to throw decarbonisation of our housing stock at them. So they're going to need a lot more people. And it's those sorts of people you see there. Now, the further explanation on this graph, you see the bar charts the stats get bigger each year that goes by. The more years of inaction we have where we don't make a dent in that number, the other side of the equation doesn't change. The 27 million homes isn't coming down. I've been using that. I think it's gone up since I started talking about it, from 26 to 27 million. But it's fixed. 2030 is fixed, 2050 is fixed, 2045 is fixed. That's not going to change, is it? We're going to need more labour, more workers to carry out this work the longer we leave it. Okay, so what I'm standing here telling you is 429,000 people by 2030 now. If we don't get on with it now, it's going to be 500,000 people in a couple of years. It's going to grow and grow and grow. So we've got to get stuck into it. And it's encouraging. I've heard encouraging things today that we are making a difference. There's an elephant in the room here, and it's purely cost. Okay, if we want to train 200,000 competent retrofitters, it costs money to do it. And if it costs an average of £2,000 a time, it's actually what it costs us to train a retrofit coordinator, it might cost UK PLC about £800 million. The economic opportunity that Martin talked about of delivering net zero is way greater than that. So it's actually a relatively minor investment, but it's still a big number. The good news is that there are a myriad of ways of accessing funding. And this rather complicated diagram starts with essentially existing adult education budget funding, just standard skills funding. It could be used to train anybody. Well, that could be used to train retrofitters. It's what colleges live and breathe by all the time. And there's sort of lots of sort of tactical opportunities to train people, but training people is only half the challenge. Training competent people, training people that, I think the gentleman who was talking about the Scottish colleges earlier is talking about all these apprentices going through Scottish colleges, not entering the workforce. Why is that happening? It's because the link between supply and demand isn't there. And why is that happening? I'd say it's because the demand side from, I think the people sat at the front of the room, from local authorities and from social housing and from owner-occupiers, the demand isn't aggregated enough. So the opportunity, we look at the numbers and we think it's huge, but it's not tangible enough. So what we need to do is pull a lot of that funding together and get training people at significant scale and quickly. Now, I'm going to finish by taking you through quite a complicated series of slides, but only in terms of the animations, don't worry. The message is really simple. This is how we would like to catalyse collaboration around the skills challenge in Scotland. So our mission is all around building retrofit capability and capacity. Those twin challenges, delivering safe, good quality retrofit. That retrofit army needed to deliver decarbonisation of 27 million homes. And it's a journey. And I'm going to take you briefly through each stage of that journey now. And the starting point for it is around competence. Competent people do things properly. People who are well-trained, well-educated, well-supported in the workplace do things properly. And retrofit's new-ish. Most of us, most people, it's new to most people. You can walk down the street and ask people about retrofit, they haven't got a bloody clue what you're talking about, most of them. So defining what competence looks like in retrofit trades and professions, it's new. There's actually very few national occupational standards kicking around. When we developed our first qualification, we were told we had to base it on a national occupational standard. There wasn't one, so we created one. But it's not easy. So we have developed a suite of qualifications which underpin the roles that PAS 2035 has been mentioned once today. I'm used to speaking at conferences where that's mentioned about 50 times, but only once today. These are the roles in PAS 2035. These are the qualifications that lead to accreditation, recognition of competence. So we've done all that heavy lifting. We've done it. We could keep it to ourselves, but we absolutely don't want to do that because we won't deliver the mission. So the framework of qualifications is sort of the outline of it is there. And I'd encourage any educational institutes in the room who want to talk to us about starting to deliver these courses to do so. Just get in touch with us and we will support you to do that in ways I'll come on to. We also have a programme for training social landlords. You want to be great clients. You want to understand these new competencies that you need to have to be not just better procurers, but better program managers and better tenant liaison officers and all these sorts of really important things that you guys do as well. So we have a program around that too. The next step on our journey is around building local partnerships. So as I said, we don't want to keep this all to ourselves, we want to share it. And the way we do that is by building partnerships all around the country, and we'd love those partnerships to include Scotland. So you can see there, we've got partnerships with places like Devon and Essex County Councils, Belfast City Council, the North East, East Sussex and Hampshire County Council. We're about to start working with Walmworks, who are here today, on a programme that covers the whole of the southeast of England, 22 million people, 11 local enterprise areas. So we would very much like to add a number of partners in Scotland to that mix. And it's incredible what you can achieve, because when you break down those huge, scary numbers of, the 429,000 people, Scotland probably needs around about 30 to 40,000 people by the end of the decade in order to do this, which is a lot less scary. And a local focus on that challenge is far more achievable than the big scary ones. We also need collaboration with the key employers in the sector, so they'll create those jobs, and also the key clients in the sector, so that they're building programs and projects that are the right way of going about it. We've seen far too many examples of procurement over the last 15 so years, which have led to poor outcomes in retrofit. There's way too many of them, some of them very, very high profile. So that's really important. So we've formed Retrofit Employers Group and a Retrofit Clients Group nationally, bringing together some of the largest social landlords. And again, there's an open invitation to any contractors and to social landlords down at the front to come and join those groups and to collaborate. We talk about the need to bring supply and demand together. To do that, we need a database, an open source database, which highlights where all the retrofit projects and programs are and gives people clear visibility on how they can get involved in them. No one else has done it, so we're going to do it. It's not something that was in our strategic plan at the start of the year, but this aggregation of demand and connecting it with supply is the theme that keeps coming up. So that's next on our list. And that will give everybody, from the climate change minister to those of us in this room, that information, that intelligence to know where we need to create a labour force and why, and most importantly, next. We're going to have to prioritise. Now, this has been touched on a few times today, but I didn't agree with the speaker who was talking about this earlier. We tend to talk about upskilling a lot, and at the minute there is some upskilling to be done. The 250,000 people who work in the workforce, yeah, fine. The initial wave of retrofit, maybe we can absorb that, maybe we can deliver that internally. But there's no way those 250,000 people can decarbonise 27 million homes. It's got to grow, and the number of 429,000 I gave you earlier, this comes from the New Economics Foundation report, is a trebling of the size of that industry. We don't attract enough people into construction as a whole at the minute. It's not seen as an attractive place to work. And if you did a survey of 100 school children at the moment, said, which sector do you want to work in? How many of them would say retrofit? 0. Okay, we've got to change it. We've got to change. We've got to go and win some hearts and minds and persuade them that energy efficiency and retrofit is not just an area they can build a career and make a good living, but for all the reasons Martin talked about, somewhere where you can actually make a massive difference in delivering, in solving climate change, which will be a massive attraction for an awful lot of them. So we're going to launch a retrofit careers portal, because if the one person out of that 100 said retrofits for me, where would they even start? It's so confusing. How would they know what a career would look like? How would they, So career pathways, identifying what they are, and identifying the career progression routes, and then taking that message to them is absolutely part of what we're going to be doing. Okay, nearly there, I promise. The next step on this journey is creating the training infrastructure that's needed to train that volume of people. And John Rennick clearly laid out that there's a network of colleges. Of course there are. We don't need to create that load of new training providers. They're already there. We need to work with those training providers to help them understand what retrofit is, to help them understand, particularly the tutors, what it is. And I still get a bit concerned when I see presentations where people are talking about retrofit in terms of heat. Okay? That is part of it, but it's fabric first, right? It's insulation and it's building treatments first, and it's renewables somewhere down the mix. You know, it should be happening at the late half of this decade, the beginning of the next. So it's fabric first. So I don't think we're doing enough around that. So we're going to go through a program of upskilling training providers, and that's going to become the core purpose of our organisation. We're going to stop delivering training at the scale that we are. We're going to start training trainers. And we're going to provide loads of support around assessing learners' work and supporting learners, because the knowledge of the average college tutor about retrofit at the minute is not great. Okay. This is, I think, what's called a wicked problem, or at least retrofit is a wicked problem. The industry, I'm talking across the UK here, not in Scotland. When the PAS 2035 was published in 2019, it gave the challenge of a lifetime to a sector that has not had to deliver to the most rigorous standards in the past. It introduced an entirely new way of working, a very good way of working, but it was unrecognisable from the past. And that has led to a whole range of difficult conversations, should we say. Well, we work very closely with the government. We're working with the policymakers so that they understand what the whole house retrofit is first, so that they can start designing policy that works, all the way through to working with Trustmark and the accreditation schemes who enforce it. Because they don't know what retrofit is either, if I'm honest. So we need to, and this is absolutely what collaboration is all about, supporting industries to deliver this at scale and solving some of the most difficult challenges that we will ever face in this country, and certainly the most important that we've faced in the last 60 years. So there's all that support. We do loads of it, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel with much of this stuff. We make most of it open source and available to anyone who's interested in it. Please don't produce any more toolkits or technical guides. We've got absolutely thousands of them. The penultimate stop on this journey is about creating jobs and building supply chains. As I said, we could easily sit back and make a small fortune out of training people. There are lots of organisations that do that. We don't. We feel it's absolutely fundamental that we put the people that we train and support them into jobs in the places where they can make the biggest difference. Partnership like the one we have with Warmworks in the southeast of England, there are hundreds of millions of pounds unspent existing government funding that was available last year for want of a supply chain to deliver the work. So we're working with them now to train hundreds of people to fill those jobs. And we want to be that sort of agency that pulls people from training and into jobs. Not exactly sure how yet, just committed to doing it. And then finally, it's about scaling all this up. So once we've got an outline, a framework, and we've got the partnerships, you know, we need to be taking massive leaps forward. We can't do this in incremental steps. We have to take massive leaps forward. The amount of money required to that's not eye-watering. We're doing 2 of them right now. We're delivering a £1 million project in Devon at the minute with Devon County Council under the Community Renewal Fund. We've been able to train 250 people through that. We've been able to create a retrofit careers portal. It's amazing how far we can make the money go. A similar project in Essex. So it is possible to take these big steps forwards, and we need to link those projects and programs together so that we're not reinventing the wheel constantly. You can all form one common image, break it up into pieces, and then make the jigsaw. So there's all sorts of opportunities there. So that is our plan. I'd really welcome conversations with anybody who wants to help make it. I'll just finish by saying that we've been working with what's now BEST, used to be Construction Innovations Scotland. They provided funding for some of our courses in Scotland, and there is some places left. If anyone, either on the client or the contractor side of the fence, is interested in that, please get in touch with me. I think the deadline's in July, so it's coming up soon. I'd really welcome that. Thank you very much for listening, and farewell.